Welcome to This Must Be the Place. I'm your host, Alo Galinsky. Each week, I'll uncover what's happening in Sonoma County, diving into the hidden gems and quirky corners. I'll be interviewing some of our local legends, as well as people you didn't know you need to know, all through the eyes of a craft beer enthusiast living in wine country. Join me as we explore one sip, one story, and one adventure at a time, and together we'll find out why this must be the place. On March 20th, a cheese festival not to be missed takes over every nook and cranny of Sonoma County. Put on by the California Cheese Guild and featuring tons of local businesses that range from cheese shops and creameries to farms and places to pair cheese, there are 3 full days of activities to enjoy. On this week's episode, we're diving headfirst into what's bound to be a Gouda time and not promising there won't be more cheesy jokes ahead. Our first of 2 interviews welcomes Keith Adams, a UC Davis graduate who found his passion for cheese through launching Alemar Cheese in Minnesota and now is the head cheese honcho of WM Cofield in Sebastopol. A love and curiosity for British-style cheese has guided his path, and he'll be in the thick of things for the Barlow's annual cheese crawl on Saturday, March 21st. He's here to talk about that and so much more with us. Welcome, Keith.
How are you?
I'm fantastic, and I'm really excited to have you on. I know you and I have collaborated on some fun events in the past, and I just love eating your cheese, and so talking about your cheese is going to excite me and hopefully our listeners. Why don't we start off with you telling our listeners a bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I'm no spring chicken. I'll be 64 in April. In my mid-40s, so almost 20 years ago, I had sort of what I charitably call a midlife crossroads, where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I don't know if it was a crisis, but it was a crossroads. I had a background in food, specifically baking. I owned and operated a small gathering of bagel and bread shops for a decade, and I absolutely loved it. The bagel industry suffered a downturn in about 2003, 2004. I ended up closing the shops and then doing kind of what I call a straight gig, a corporate sales job. And I did that for about 3 years. But in the middle of the 3 years, I really started thinking about doing something different. I grew up out here. I went to UC Davis with some people that make wine. At the time, I was in Minnesota, married a girl from there, and have 2 lovely daughters. And I wanted to do something like winemaking, but not winemaking in Minnesota. The wine there is getting progressively better, but for me, it's not at the top of the list. And I only wanted to make something that was absolutely at the top of the list. Also, winemaking is more expensive and time consuming in terms of getting your first crop. And it just made sense to me, after looking at fermentation in general and then cheese specifically, that this might be something I would be good at.
Right on. Well, it sounds like you've had quite the path from bagels to wine to cheese. Way back before bagels, was there a specific moment when you realized food or cheese was going to be your path, the Keith Adams way?
I don't know that there's a lot of people like me, in the sense that, like, I was a picky eater when I was a kid.
You and me both.
Fussy. I was very fussy about what I ate. And some of it would, doesn't make sense. My mom's from the South, so like I like lima beans. Most people can't stand them. But they're, like eggs were a problem for me, that kind of thing. And then as I got into my later 20s, I started cooking. I started reading a lot about food, and it just became one of the main sort of hobbies, passions I had. And as I went out to finer dining establishments, I started to expand my palate until the point where pretty much, I'll eat anything that's out there. And I just had an appreciation for the way that chefs took all of these different products, these beautiful products, put them together into something just extraordinary. And that was sort of the tipping off point. And there was a dish at a restaurant I went to that had like toast points and roasted garlic, and then some Cambozola cheese, which is, camembert with blue. And it's a mass-produced cheese, but it's a good one. And those 3 components together were a really beautiful mouthful.
And simple.
Yeah, very simple.
Yeah.
And but it was like, oh, this is like, I mean, that was probably the first time I ever really considered eating blue cheese, and it's super mild, but that was kind of the tipping point of going, well, there's a lot of stuff I'm probably missing. And then once I got focused on cheese as a career, it became very obvious very quickly that I was never going to know everything. There's just so much to know. It's like beer, right?
Right.
You're never going to know everything. You can do the best you can, but there's going to be something because it's just too broad and deep for one person to know everything, or at least me.
Yeah, and I'm a big beer guy. I'm a certified cicerone, but I do it's a half serious joke that I want to become a certified cheeserone next. Like I do have a passion for the flavor profiles and kind of history of different styles of cheese, and it pairs so greatly with beers. We'll talk about a little bit later on, but there is so much to be learned in the world of fermentation and food that I find fascinating. Sounds
Yeah.
kind of similar to your path as well.
Yep. And the American Cheese Society, which is not the greatest name for a group, but there it is. They have a program for certified cheese professionals.
I've seen.
And, yeah, and it's pretty cool. It's quite in depth. It requires a great deal of study, but there's a lot of people in our industry that are, super proud to have that on their business cards. And there's room for you, Aloe.
Well, maybe I will dig in. And to our listeners out there, if you are also interested in becoming a cheese professional, I suggest you stop by the website, but also stop by WM Cofield and chat with Keith about it. I'm sure he'll fill you in on everything you need to know. Now, Keith, what ultimately brought you to Sonoma County? Was it an opportunity, lifestyle, community, or some mix of all three?
It really boiled down to where do I want to be for the rest of my life? I grew up in Davis. We spent a great deal of time in Bodega Bay when I was a kid, specifically Salmon Creek. We had a friend who had a cabin and we spent a lot of time there, and it was our family happy place. And I remember being, like fifth, sixth grade, driving from Bodega Bay to Sebastopol to go shopping for my Levi's and my Hang 10 t-shirts or whatever. But it's just so funny to think of coming back to this. But what it really got down to was I was in Minnesota, but I was no longer married. My kids were going off to do things. They weren't going to stay in the town where we were. And I really wanted to come home to California. And oh, by the way, some of the absolute best dairy in the world
Yes.
in Sonoma County.
Happy
So
cows come from California and especially Sonoma County, as the
there
saying
you go.
goes.
No, it is the best. I was fortunate to have a great mentor in Sue Conley from Cowgirl Creamery. And she helped me sort of get acclimated into the cheese community here. And it's a tight-knit group. And, we all support one another. But let's face it, we're spoiled. We're in a absolutely gorgeous piece of the world. And the food and beverages that grow and are created here are as good as it gets.
No, very true. Now, being a business owner, a cheesemaker, a wine and bagel maker at one point, you've had your hand in so many different pots. I'm sure it's hard. Every day is different. But what three words would you describe to use the life of right now a cheesemaker and business owner?
Passion, persistence, and patience.
The
How's
three
that?
P's.
I'll go alliterative on you.
I love
I
alliteration as a creative writing major and a fan of wordplay. I do love some alliteration. So
I'm an old English major too.
those are great.
Anyway, I mean, I could throw out 20 more, but it's you got to love what you're doing. You've got to keep your eyes on the prize at all times. We've been through more challenges than I would have hoped for, with local fires in the teens, and then a flood at our building in 2019, and then COVID. It was a lot. And
Yes.
if I didn't have persistence, I wouldn't be here. And then the patience thing is like cheese just is not going to go faster than it's going to go. You can't will it to get ripe faster. So
Right.
you have to wait until it's great. And that's taught me some patience as well.
Now, you've had a very interesting history with having dabbled in all these different arts of fermentation. You mentioned somebody at Cowgirl Creamery that you may have kind of apprenticed with. Now, tell our listeners, did you formally train? Were you an apprentice of some sort, or did you really self-teach everything there was to know about your cheese making?
Well, I will say this, coming from a bakery background was very helpful. Baking is more science and absolutely specific ratios.
Very precise.
To the gram, yes. And if you get something wrong, you start over. There's more latitude in cheese making. What I did was I found Sue, who at the time This is, again, almost 20 years ago. Cowgirl was a big success. It was not easy to get her attention, but I was gently persistent, and she finally took me on as a mentee. And then she introduced me to a woman named Margaret Morris, who has a company called Glengarry Cheese in Ontario, Canada. And Margaret knows as much as anyone about cheese making, and she really taught me the detail bits of it. So I found a great mentor and teacher. I found a great milk source. I knew I wanted to make soft ripened Camembert style cheese, and I knew that I wasn't going to be perfect at the beginning. So there were a number of batches that didn't make it, but I learned from that and tried very hard not to repeat my mistakes. And there's a term some people use for like knowing when you're in a kitchen, a busy kitchen, when to turn around and turn over a piece of meat, or something's getting ready to simmer or whatever. There's a cheese awareness too. You're observing and you're noticing, and of course then you're tasting and you're thinking about what you might do differently. And everything has to be incremental, because changing everything is kind of the baby in the bathwater. And you just need to make subtle changes and learn from those.
And you have to be somebody who's willing to tinker. For me personally, everybody always asks, have I ever homebrewed? And I did it once with a friend, probably 12 years ago now, but it's not something I ever care to do again. Yeah. I don't have the patience. I'm not of the science. I like to tell the stories of the product, but homebrewing is something I don't necessarily want to dabble in. And I know that about myself. It also takes the right space to have to do these things, temperature controlled, sanitary spaces. And listen, when you're growing up and living in places with roommates and whatnot, you don't always have the perfect spaces to experiment in the cleanest way.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing about, growing old and maturing and figuring out what, where your path lies. What you do obviously have is a remarkable palate and a curiosity.
Yes.
And you found your way to the right thing.
Let's hope so. Now, you have two brands. So you're the head honcho of Cofield, but you also have this brand, Alemar Cheese. Do you want to tell our listeners the differences or similarities between your two brands?
Sure. So Alemar is an amalgam of my daughters, Alexander and Marielle. That's where the name comes from.
I've always been curious. I never knew that.
There it is. And as I mentioned, I started it in 2008 in Minnesota. It was a slowly progressive success story. Just kept, growing in terms of demand and sales and awards and press and that kind of stuff. And it was really gratifying and fun, because I was totally nervous that I would be, fraud or an imposter. I have that in my makeup. So to have awards and get nice write-ups and be in some really impressive restaurants, fairly early on was pretty awesome. And Alemar was on a, kind of a steady growth plane. We actually were profitable. And then I had to go and move back to California. And what I did was hire a guy to take over production there. And Alemar existed without me being physically there all the time for 10 years in Minnesota. And we had a lot of good things had to go right for that to work. And then about a year and a half ago, we had a cheesemaker transition that went south. And we had some issues that presented me with a series of options, the best one being moving Alemar to California. So I moved here in 2014 and started making cheese at Cofield in 2016. So we're 9 years in now. And about a year and a half ago, we moved Alemar from Minnesota to California. So it's all under one roof. And Alemar focuses primarily on French-inspired soft cheeses, and Cofield primarily focuses on British-inspired cheeses. Totally different things, but I love them both. And now I've got everything under one roof with my eyeballs on it.
That's great. And it's nice to be able to have that control over the quality of the product and also offer two different things for your consumer base.
It has been very helpful. It was not the plan until it became the plan. And then the economics of it, instead of two rents and that kind of thing, became a more viable business model.
You're seeing it all across the beer world too. There's these mergers and kind of strategical partnerships of, well, if we have the lights on for one operation, what's the harm in having the lights on for two or three, consolidating resources? So
sure, you're
being business savvy, and that's really what sets people who are surviving and then thriving in this economy, in this industry today, apart are the people who are able to take those ideas. And as you said, whether they were the plan or have become the plan, you're adapting and you're making it work.
Yeah, a sensible person would have probably thrown in the towel a while ago. But I
I know
love what
you,
I
Keith,
do.
and I know you're not sensible in the best way possible.
I am not sensible.
So,
But
for our listeners who
yeah.
might be new to your cheeses, what makes Cofield especially distinct in the artisan cheese world?
Well, the thing I wasn't able to do with Alemar was go to France and learn to make camembert in France. My kids were young. I didn't have enough money or time to do it. But once I decided I wanted to launch Cofield, I was able to go to England. And I was there for 3 weeks. I learned how to make Stilton style cheese, which is the great blue of England, in the Midlands of England, which is where it started. And then cheddar, the most famous cheese from Britain, is in Somerset County, Southwest. And I was able to go down there and learn from a really great cheesemaker named Tom Calder, whose family has an operation called Westcombe Dairy. And they make some of the best cheddar in the world. And I got to work with them and learn, and then bring that back to California with our terroir, our milk. And you're going to have similarities, but like hops that grow in Washington versus the Midwest or Europe, you're going to have a difference, even if it's the exact same plant. Right? What the cows are eating, their environment, the humidity, everything contributes to the ultimate flavor and caliber and quality of the milk, rather. And then I'm a big believer that the best milk makes the best cheese. And we really are fortunate to have a wealth of great dairy families, most of who have been doing it for over 100 years. And it's like, fifth, sixth generation. And it boggles my mind that these folks do what they do, because it is as hard a job as anything I know. And I always say, when I feel sorry for myself, I think about the dairy farmer. They're milking on Christmas. The cows don't know it's Christmas. They need to be milked. And so it's a 365-day-a-week operation, and you really have to push to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like I might know the answer to this next one, but I'm going to wait and hear what you say. Is there one cheese you feel really represents the heart of your operation? I'm curious if I'm correct here.
My little pithy answer is don't ask me who my favorite daughter is.
Sure.
But I would say, really, from the two companies, Bent River was the first cheese I ever made. It was a camembert. A couple years in, it placed nationally in a big competition. And that was the cheese that launched my career. And so that's the nearest and dearest for sure from Alemar. And then the cheddar at Cofield has become the thing we're probably best known for, and the thing I really love. And that's not to say I don't love the other cheeses we make. It's just, that's kind of, if you said, well, you can only make one, I'd have to say that's the one, and it'd be cheddar.
Now, has your philosophy around cheese changed since you first started? And if so, how has that been the case?
My philosophy hasn't changed a whole lot. I'm looking for great milk from dairies that have primarily grass-based feed programs. Cows were meant to eat grass. They, in certain environments, including Northern California, where our grass grows in the wintertime when it's still cool, they need a little bit of silage, a little bit of grain in their diet for the protein and fats to do their thing. In Minnesota, the cows are on fresh grass in the summer months when it's humid and lush and rainy. So there's a whole lot of nutrients in that grass, and they can do that as 100% grass fed. So the way the animals are treated, the feed program that they're subscribed to, that's a big deal to me. And then honoring the techniques and traditions of the old country, whether it be Normandy or Somerset, but doing it the way they did it, and then learning from your mistakes, trying to pay attention to the nuances of what you're doing, and just, try to create something special.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it sounds like you've built everything on that philosophy and you're holding true to it. Let's switch gears here a little bit. Talk about the cheese crawl. I mean, a cheese crawl sounds like the event of my personal dreams. And from what I hear, it's a good time. As I said, this is my first time back in Sonoma County, really in about 6 years for these events. And I'm really excited to come out and experience it. But for listeners like myself who haven't experienced it, what exactly is the cheese crawl at the Barlow, and how does it work?
Okay, so I believe this is our third time. it is really an honor and pretty cool that for one afternoon, the epicenter of California cheese is at Barlow and Sebastopol, right around us. So there are 12, I believe, cheesemaking producers who will be partnered up with various businesses in the Barlow, and they will create some kind of bite together. And for instance, our friends at Golden State Cider and Seismic, they're going to obviously have a drink to go with that. And it's a subscription event. I am, happy and also a little sad to say that everything's sold out.
Wow.
So this will be something you'll need to think about for next year. It's about 3 hours of wandering around, eating great cheese bites and drinking fun things. And it's just it's a vibe. It's a good vibe.
It's a good vibe. All right. I'm all about the good vibes. Now, Keith, what will you be plating at the crawl this year? Any exclusives or perhaps surprises?
Yeah. So the last few years, we've partnered with Gold Ridge Organics. My friend Allie, who has been in the cheese world for a long time now, works at Gold Ridge Organics, and they do apple things and all kinds of things related to apples. For instance, they have a bourbon barrel apple cider syrup.
Wow.
That Allie says is amazing. So we're thinking about pairing that with one of the softer cheeses and a little crostini or something like that. So she's coming over on Friday. We're going to test some
What
stuff.
am I doing on Friday? I don't know if maybe I should sneak
Come
over.
on over, bud.
Be an extra palate tester.
Come on by.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Now, if someone only has time to try one of your cheeses at the crawl, which should it be and why?
Well, I mean, we've got the bite that people are going to get. Then you can wander in, and we have our full staff and cheese shop available. So depending on how much time you have, if you want to taste through what we produce, that's certainly doable. And I wouldn't, presume to tell you just take one. Everybody's different, but I would plug our grilled cheese sandwich. And with 3 hours to get around to 12 places, you do have time to sit down. It comes in 4 squares. If you're with a group of people, you can just, grab a square each and enjoy it because it's a really lovely sandwich. We're really, I think, justifiably proud of it.
It's one that I still have yet to experience. I need to get down there and get myself a grilled cheese because I've heard nothing but amazing things about
happened, and then I want all your beer recommendations on what you
Absolutely.
think nicely with it.
What pro tips do you have for guests attending the cheese crawl to ensure they taste the most limited run cheeses before they go poof into the day or the night? Is there anything, as experiencing this for 3 years now, that you would say, the Keith Adams insider guide to getting the best of the cheese crawl?
If you are part of the cheese crawl, it's 540 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's going to be 540 tastes for everybody. So you don't have to feel like you're going to miss out on something. And the other piece of it is the first year was a learning process. And we learned to figure out how to space people out a little bit better. And there were some lines that were longer than we would have liked. Last year, they really dialed it in. And it felt like, I think they expanded the tasting for an extra hour. And, there's a little passport you get that if you go to all 12 places and you get a stamp, you get to enter in for some kind of wonderful cheese prize. I would just say, don't feel like you have to rush. Don't feel rushed. And just kind of like I said, if it's a vibe of wandering around, learning about cheeses from different producers, experts, and just kind of enjoying the day, It's just been nothing but fun.
And hopefully the weather at the end of March is going to hold up nicely for this, considering
you never know. It was a little sprinkly last year and everybody did fine.
Listen, I think coming out for cheese, rain or shine, is always going to be a fantastic idea. We're getting set to wrap up here, Keith, but I can't let you get away without talking about one of my favorite topics, which are pairings. Now, pairings that you offer, what do you think that the best things, from beverages to accompaniments on a board to maybe even places to experience Cofield cheese, might be? Why don't you give us a couple of your cheeses and what you would pair with them or where you might pair with them?
Well, first of all, if you're interested in our cheeses and good cheese in general, come to the shop. We have cheese boards with cheese and charcuterie if that's your preference. If not, that's cool. We also have fresh baked baguette from Redbird Bakery. We have curry spiced almonds that we make in house, and a plum chutney that we also make in house, and then whatever fresh fruit we really like at that point. So that's basically our little board to sample from, and you can nosh at will. We don't set the cheese out in small bites. We give them in a little single piece and 3 knives so you can tuck into it yourself. And then that's the beginning of it. And I always sort of tell people, well, make friends with your cheese first, get to know it a little bit on its own, and then start thinking about ways you can pair it. And there's a million different cross ways of doing that with the 4 accompaniments that we've got. That's a great jumping off point. And then we do have a small gathering of quality local beers and cider on tap. And we do have 6 wines by the glass, from a Pet Nat sparkler to a, Up Valley Calistoga Cabernet blend. But they're all local. And in many cases, I know the people that make the wine. And again, every palate is different. So what somebody enjoys, you might not enjoy. But what we tried to do was get together a gathering of beverages that didn't clash with anything, where there wasn't a glaring like, oh, these two together are not a good thing.
Right.
And so from the spectrum of a lighter bubbly to a robust Cabernet blend and everything sort of in between, you're probably going to find something you like. And we let people taste the beverages before they select if they'd like, so they know that they're getting something they're going to enjoy.
Well, it sounds like you've really made a thoughtful, curated experience at WM Cofield in general. Keith, this was wonderful to have you on here. Thank you so much for chatting with me about the Cheese Crawl and your business. To our listeners out there, it sounds like you may have missed the boat to get a ticket for the Cheese Crawl.
The marketplace on Sunday there's still tickets available, and that is a shindig. It's at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds in Santa Rosa, and all the cheesemakers will be there. We're talking 25 different cheesemakers, and then charcuterie producers, bakers, wineries, breweries, distilleries, kombucha producers.
There's going to be a lot. And we're going to preview
there.
that next with our chat with the director of the Cheese Guild and Jane Holt, who works for one of the creameries in Sonoma County. So we're going to dig into that in our next segment. Keith, thank you again for being on This Must Be the Place, and take care.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
For our second interview, Dishing Everything Cheesy, we welcome guests Jane Lyon Holt and Luciana Villanueva of the California Artisan Cheese Guild. Get ready to hear about our guests' backgrounds, what to expect from the Artisan Cheese Festival, and how the Guild supports creameries, farms, and beyond, especially in Sonoma County, as part 2 of our podcast gets underway. Welcome, Luciana and Jane.
Hello, we're so excited to be here.
Thanks.
I'd love to start off here by hearing a bit more about each of your backgrounds and when you both fell in love with artisan cheese. So, Luciana, do you want to start us off?
Absolutely. I actually started as a cashier at Market Hall Foods, and I love the cheese people. The cheese people were the coolest, most fun people, and shared what they were interested in and what was tasting yummy. And I was smitten. I fell in love with cheese and the producers and the whole community, and actually got to work with Jane. So Jane and I just were chopping it up, slinging cheese.
So you two go way back, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And Luciana, what is your role now at the Cheese Guild?
My role with the Cheese Guild is I currently serve as president of the Cheese Guild, and I also serve as cheese director for a family-owned retailer in San Francisco. We are Greek family-owned, and it's Gus's Community Market.
I've heard wonderful things about Gus's, and so it sounds like you're the head cheese of operations then.
I'm extremely cheesy.
Jane, talk to us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, especially good to throw it back with Luciana. So I currently serve on the board of directors for the Cheese Guild with Luciana. I'm the secretary, so lots of note taking, and it's a great group of people. I got into cheese, wow, it's like over 15 years ago. I graduated with an ag science major, and I liked dairy, and was a big foodie family. So you put that together and you end up with cheese. So I went to work at Market Hall Foods in Oakland as a cheesemonger, kind of took it as my cheese college and just dove headfirst in, got to meet great people like Luciana and then the Giacomini sisters, who are my current employers. So I worked there for 5 years and always wanted to go back and work for a producer. So I currently work for Point Reyes Farmstead Cheese Co. I'm their direct to consumer manager, so shipping out lots of gift packs, do lots of customer service. I've been there for about 9 years, so time really flies.
But you like it. It sounds like there's enough to keep you staying on board.
The cheese community, which you'll learn if you come to the festival, are just great people. Like, not to toot my own horn, but like, it's just fun. I always say if you're in a town and you don't know what to do, like find a cheese counter. They will hook you up with cheese, but also give you all the recs, where to go, where to drink beer, where to drink wine, music venues, like find your cheese people.
I feel like it's very similar to the beer community in that regard. You know, you go up to a tap room and hopefully the bartenders are super helpful. They want you to try their product. They're always full of recommendations. And there's even a cheese trail map, which I hear is being updated or has recently been updated. We could spend a whole segment of this podcast talking about that. But we're going to move on to talking about the Cheese Festival coming up on the weekend of March 20th. For listeners who may be new to it, what is the Cheese Festival and what makes it different from other food festivals?
The Cheese Festival can just be summed up as like Cheese-a-Palooza. It is 3 days long. Friday starts with farm tours. You meet on a bus at the Flamingo. Most of them start out there. And then you head out around Sonoma and Marin counties. You're going to be seeing and interacting with multiple cheese producers on each of these tours. Also, there tends to be an alcohol producer. So we've got going up to Hyde Run Meadery in Point Reyes. So great time there. Then we jump over to Saturday, where we've got a day of seminars planned. So all about cheese education, plenty of cheese eating. We've got raclette, cheese and caviar, cheese board building seminars. And that night, we head over to the Barlow in Sebastopol for a cheese crawl. That is, each cheese maker is partnered with a brewery, winery, or restaurant in the Barlow. And you go station to station eating, drinking until you've had your fill. Unfortunately, that's always our first event to sell out. So
that's what I heard in our last chat with Keith. So
yeah.
It sounds like those who want to be crawling around cheese are going to have to design their own itinerary, perhaps guided by the cheese trail map. But there's plenty more going on.
Yeah, plenty more. And then it kind of all culminates in Sunday, which is just the ultimate cheese festival. It's our marketplace. So we have all of the California cheesemakers there are sampling and selling their cheeses. And then I think we've got up to like 40 or 60 additional vendors there. So that's everybody from breweries, wineries, cideries, jam makers, cracker makers, a tea company is there, beef jerky. It's just a day of eating, drinking. There's music, an author's corner, where there'll be book signings that's hosted by Copperfields. It's got everything you need in a weekend.
So don't eat breakfast and you won't leave hungry is the gist I'm getting.
Oh, and if you want breakfast, we've got the VIP Bubbles and Bites brunch, which you can book ahead of the marketplace, and you get a 1 hour early access into the marketplace.
Well, thank you so much for giving us the rundown. Luciana, do you want to add anything to that?
I do, because it's the perfect place to palate play. You can go from one cheese and pair it with two different jams, or with a charcuterie, or with a certain cocktail or certain tea. So you learn what combinations, and you get to play with all these vendors. And the one thing about this community, and I believe it's the same thing with the beer community, we are gigged for fun. Fun, we are like moths to light when it comes to fun. We will gravitate to where it is fun. So it's the perfect place to play.
So who is this really designed for? Is it industry insiders, consumers, locals, tourists, or some combination of all four of those?
I think it's kind of a combination. So really outwardly, it's for consumers. It's consumers come and eat our cheese, explore products, but it's also a place where connection is happening. As cheesemakers, we get asked to attend lots of events. Sometimes we might hire somebody to attend and represent an event for us, but at this festival, it's kind of at the heart of what we do. So the full team tends to be there. Oftentimes there's the cheesemaker, the owner is there. It's the perfect time to really like nerd out and geek out with people who really like cheese. I work for Point Reyes, and I know in our managers meeting, we were just encouraging all of our managers to be there, hang out with other cheesemakers, meet consumers, meet wineries. It kind of is all of the above, but it is meant and centered around our consumers eating and drinking and having a wonderfully good time.
And what does this festival mean to California cheesemakers, especially the smaller artisan producers? Is it really the first time that they get to showcase in front of that large of an audience? Tell us a little bit about that. Maybe Luciana, you can speak to this.
Absolutely. For our smaller cheese makers that have smaller marketing budgets and labor pool, it is the premier place to really chop it up, sling their cheese, and have connections. There's going to be over 2,000 people attending, and a lot of our smaller guys just love this festival for that opportunity. They also get to sell at this marketplace. So if you find your favorite cheese, rather than asking, hey, where can I get it? They're going to have pieces for you to take home. So it's like a win-win on all fronts. And that brings me to the California Artisan Cheese Guild. Our mission is to support producers, large and small. But I really want to talk about the connection.
Please.
We've talked about what a great community it is, but the power of the community lies in advocacy. So the Guild advocates for our producers, to terrophiles, people who love cheese, to cheesemongers.
What was that word?
A terrophile?
A terrophile. I've never heard that before.
Oh, a terrophile is someone who loves cheese.
I'm going to have to add that to my lexicon.
Please add it to the lexicon. Please buy a t-shirt on that. I'm
Okay.
sure there's a couple out there. We love to share our passion and our expertise. The Cheese Guild also hosts the Curd Chronicles. And our next Curd Chronicle is March 12th, and it's going to be about the life of a herdsman. Like, what does a herdsman do? Do they hang out with their cows or goats or sheep? What do they do on a day-to-day basis? And the Curd Chronicles is complimentary, and you get to nerd out and let us share our passion.
So is the Curd Chronicle an online listening experience or something in person?
It is a webinar.
A webinar, great.
Yeah, so you can be hanging out with your favorite cheese and a beer and just
sign me up.
Out.
Sounds like an amazing time.
And we encourage collaboration and lots of questions. So even though they're virtual, we try and make it like as we're not in separate living rooms as possible.
Sure. If you were designing the ultimate first-timer itinerary for this festival, how would you tell someone to spend their weekend? Are there absolute must-do experiences? I know it's hard for somebody who maybe coming to Sonoma County or living in Sonoma County commit to all 3 days, but outside of that, how would you design the perfect itinerary for a first-timer?
I mean, I think you got to go big or go home. So an event all 3 days.
Go big and then go home.
Yeah, like an event all 3 days would be great, but we understand, you can't do that. So I think our biggest tip for a first timer is book the VIP Bubbles and Bites on Sunday. That's going to be the longest day of cheese. And so Bubbles and Bites is going to start out in the morning at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds. That's where the marketplace is hosted. And it's like the Sarah Lee barn, I think back behind the venue, we're going to start out with Bubbles and Bites. So that's going to be prepared brunch bites that all feature California cheeses. So it won't be a full meal, just little nibbles to get you going. And then it's going to be led by Clark Wolf, and he's going to be interviewing Jill Giacomini Bash and Lynn Giacomini Stray from Point Reyes Farmstead about all things cheese and the festival and their story. So, and more importantly, it gets you an hour early into the festival, so you can really get the lay of the land when things are quiet. So great opportunity for a first time.
Which of the tours do you think people should go? I mean, I'm sure all 3 of them are great, but is there one in particular that, if you had somebody to have to grab onto?
I'm loving Tour C option. So Tour C, you're going to go to one of my favorite creameries, Nicasio Valley Cheese Company. They're the only organic farmstead creamery in California. You're also going to head out to Hydron Meadery in Point Reyes, which is, they make sparkling mead, so that's honey wine. And they've got this like magical willow tree with picnic tables under it, and you feel like you've entered a fairy land. Beehive Cheese will be serving cheese at that stop. And then you'll also be headed over to Marin French to end the day. And they are the oldest continually producing creamery in the US. I think they just celebrated, is it 160 years? 165
Wow,
years?
that's a piece of history
Something.
right there.
So, and that is our last tour that is actually available for Friday. So book it quick.
Book it quickly. Now, the artisan cheese tasting and marketplace is often described as kind of the centerpiece of the whole weekend experience. What's something that people might be surprised to discover there that they might not think of at first sight?
I think one of their first impressions is the energy in the room, how exciting people are, how exciting the producers are to share their expertise and their passion with folks. And it's also amazing how supportive and nurturing this community is, because cheesemakers will tell you, hey, this pairs really good with those guys over there. And it rather than being a competitive linear situation, it's more of a collaborative fun. I mentioned the word palette play. I mentioned the word fun. It is this electric energy that like fills the room and makes you want to just eat even more than you can.
Yeah, no
Now,
stuffiness.
are there talks or
No.
anything organized going on at the marketplace, or is it purely a kind of wander, nibble, sip type of experience?
Wander, nibble, sip. There will be some prepared food that you can purchase. Valley Ford often does raclette, although that hasn't been confirmed yet. New last year was the Authors Corner, which will be back. So we'll have a couple authors there signing books and books to purchase. But there's also all the good things that go with cheese, specifically at the marketplace on Sunday. So we've got 60 non-cheese vendors who are also there sampling and selling. So we've got some new producers, some new breweries. We've gotten a lot more breweries over the years. So first time this year is Old Kaz is going to be there, Anderson Valley Brewing Company, and then anything yummy and delicious you'd put on a cheese board.
Right on. Now, switching gears a little bit from the cheese festival and marketplace to talking about cheese in general in California here. What are some trends you're seeing right now in artisan cheese across California, especially as it relates to Northern California? And are we perhaps in a golden age, at a crossroads, or somewhere in the middle?
Oh, we're definitely in a very exciting phase, because you've got your old world, the manchegos that were done, but in California, it's all about innovation. It's all about flavored cheeses. It's all about pushing the palate and pushing the limits of what tastes good and what brings joy. So
where are you seeing some of those pushing the boundaries coming from in particular? Is there anywhere or any few places in particular?
Oh, take a look at Keith Adams, William Cofield,
Yes.
Good Thunder, Death and Taxes, right? Like washing a cheese with beer. Brilliant! What a brilliant concept. Golden Gate by Marin French. It's about a couple of years old, but it is one of the most approachable washed rinds. When you think of a washed rinds, you think of stinky and just way overwhelming. This thing has a fudgy paste that is just golden. Take a look at Point Reyes, the truffle brie. If you cut into that, truffle is a funny flavor. It can come off too much, or it can come off as maybe being processed, but their truffle brie combines rich and buttery with that earthy, truffly taste that is phenomenal. Petite everything Marin French. They've got those little buttons that are, rich and creamy, firm with the everything flavoring to it. So these are just a few of my favorite things.
Jane, what about you? Are you seeing trends now in California artisan cheese?
It's all about the flavors. So Point Reyes Farmstead, pre-2018, we never had a flavored cheese. We thought we were kind of cheese purist. We weren't going to do that, but we had everybody asking for it. So we sat down. It was really fun. Our cheesemaker made 20 or 30 different versions of Toma. And we said, okay, let's start exploring. And then we've really never stopped exploring. So now we have 3 flavors of our Toma. One that I think is the most unique, and I can't say definitively, but I think we are the only people using shimshimi togarashi seasoning in a cheese. So that's a Japanese spice blend. It's got chili, it's got nori, ginger, nigella seeds, really nice warming spices, but very gentle heat. So that's our tomarashi.
It's
but
delicious.
Yeah, with what Luciano is going on, I do think flavored, but quality flavored cheese. Like gone are the days of soggy chives in cheese. Bring in something new where you actually taste the cheese. Kind of like on a cheese board, you would put a jam. on a cheese board. So that's how I like to think of good quality flavored cheeses. It already has that pairing built into it. You get the cheese, you get a little bit of something extra, and you get that cheese again at the end.
It sounds
And
like
you
you guys are really doing some unique stuff there. Tomarashi is fantastic. I've actually had the pleasure of having it at Jane's house before, so I've
At this
experienced it.
kitchen table.
Is there a big threat to artisan cheese making in California right now? Is there anything on the horizon or that's pervasive in the industry or, into farmlands that you would say is posing a threat to what the cheesemakers are doing?
Something that makes Sonoma County, and I kind of extend when we're talking about cheese, Sonoma County and West Marin, a lot of our neighbors are out in that area, kind of lump it as one agricultural area together. And, farmlands are disappearing, and we are known for our milk. That is why we have cheese. It's from our rich dairying history. So that's always a problem. And then kind of with that, and this is the unglamorous side of things, is that labor continues to increase and it becomes increasingly hard to find labor, especially talking about getting people to travel out to Point Reyes to do that kind of work. So it's always something we're looking at, trying to incentivize people to get out there. And I know Point Reyes, it's not unique. We've talked with lots of producers, and it is hard. So, if anybody out there listening wants to try their hand at making cheese, we want you.
So why is Sonoma County the right home for this festival? You could have it in any number of places across Northern California. Why Sonoma County?
Why not Sonoma County? I think it's
That is completely fair.
You think of Sonoma County and you just think of good dairy, good cheese, good food, good beer, good wine, good community, great weather. It fits, it supports our heritage. I also want to talk about this festival is starting to be Sonoma County's heritage. It's our 20th anniversary of the festival this year, which is mind-boggling.
That's wild.
And crazy. It started over in the Sheraton, just I think in the ballroom. And then it was the Sheraton parking lot, and we've outgrown that. And now we're up at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds. And last year we had over 2,000 guests at this festival, but more impressive, that was from 28 different states. So talk about
So
Sonoma
people
County
are traveling for this.
Yeah.
And 5 countries. Cheese and Sonoma County is being an international destination to people, which...
Now I have a question for you thinking about this, because this year it's also the same weekend as the start of the Pliny the Younger release. Do you think, I don't know if it's usually around the same time every year, do you think that also might have something to do with the cross-pollination of people coming to California in March as a destination for, as you said, we always have great food, great wine, great beer, great product, but maybe that helps having these two things on at the same time as well as that springtime weather?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the more people eating, drinking in Sonoma County, the better. The festival has actually done a little bit with the Pliny Younger release before. We've been there sampling cheese. I think a couple years ago we did that, but you definitely notice people, particularly at the marketplace, I think on Sunday, who jumped from both events.
When did Sonoma County first become like a serious cheesemaking region? Is there some history there that either of you want to share with us?
Yeah, there definitely is. And of course, my experience with this is really entwined with Point Reyes Farmstead Cheese Company. So I tasked Jill Giacomini Bash, one of our owners, last night to kind of talk to her about this. And it really just started in like the 80s and 90s. You had a couple different waves of cheese making in California, particularly Northern California. So from here all the way up to Humboldt. What was really interesting about this is it was a lot of fantastic women. We had, Laura Chanel, Bellwether Farms, you had Redwood Creamery back at that time.
Yeah.
And really for Point Reyes Farmstead's journey, we started our first batch of Original Blue was in August of 2000. We'd been a dairy farm though since 1965. And all the sisters came back to the farm to help make a finished product on farm. And it was, what are we going to do? We could make ice cream, we could make butter, and it was cheese. And that was really because we had the cowgirls out there in Point Reyes. They had started making cheese, and they really thought of West Marin and Sonoma County being this cheese destination. And they took people under their wings. If you talk to any of the Giacomini sisters, they talk about how valuable that mentorship was and really just helping us along in that. And that's what's continued since the 80s.
So it sounds like there's been this big vision and kind of a created vision after everybody discovered what a great region it is for cheesemaking.
Yeah. And if it can be a destination for wine, it can be a destination for cheese. It's the destination for beer now. So
And as you said, that makes Sonoma County's point of view even stronger. Now, Luciana, where do you see California Artisan Cheese heading in the next 5 to 10 years? You're the president of the Cheese Guild. Where do you see cheese heading, and what excites you most about those prospects?
It's the community and the connection, okay, and the advocacy, and at the center of it all is it's almost the bucket analogy of when the water rises, we all rise. So what I see for the California Cheese Guild and the San Francisco Cheese Fest and the Northern California Coalition is just the continuing connection, the approachability of producers. We are not a snobby group. We are a very approachable, very supportive group. So what I see is the connection between the cheesemonger, the terroir, and the producers all coming in collaboratively to raise us all up.
And I'm sure it takes a lot of marketing and messaging to make sure everybody gets those connections and can find ways to find each other.
That's one of the things the Guild is focusing on, the Curd Chronicles with the webinar. We take a different topic. Our topic in January was what are hot trends at the Fancy Food Fair. We are also connecting and beginning to have a cheesemonger camp so that cheesemongers from all over can increase their skill and actually make cheese, hands in the vat. So, we're evolving, we're continuing, we're growing, and we're learning. And we're trying different things.
Now, Jane, kind of the same question to you. Where do you see California Artisan Cheese heading in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see these flavor-forward cheeses, these unique cheeses rising? Kind of in the beer industry, we're having a reset back to lagers and palate-delicate beers. Do you think that these traditional cheeses still have a place, or do you think the flavor-forward are going to take over?
I think in the beginning, American cheese, talking on the international level, was kind of like, sorry, no. American cheesemakers in the beginning really had to prove themselves. Similar path to what was happening with wineries when that was new in California. And so they really stuck with tradition. They tried to make a lot of these traditional type cheeses and figure it out. Now we've shown up. Sonoma County in particular, this area is a cheese destination. We've got the chops to go with it. Cheesemakers from all across California have won tons of awards, even on an international scale. So I think those chains have kind of broken, and who knows what's next. Innovation is key, and whether that's innovating and riffing on something, traditional. We take our quinta cheese, which is a Vacheron Mont d'Or style cheese wrapped in spruce bark, but then we pick bay leaves from our farm and make a tea, and then we steep the bark in that bay leaf tea and infuse that into the cheese. So it's this deep-rooted traditional cheese with that California Marin County bend on it. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that, a lot more of creative freedom from cheesemakers, whether that's flavors or just combining different recipes. But I think there's a lot to come.
Now, as we start wrapping up here, I have one fun one for both of you here. Let's do a little collaboration between the both of you. Go back and forth. Let me know if you were to build the ultimate Sonoma County cheese board. Give me 4 to 5 cheeses that have to be on it.
I'm going to start with Golden Gate. I love Golden Gate, and it will pair with a number of jams that we've got, and I just think a pear jam would be awesome.
So Golden Gate is from where?
Marin French.
Marin French Golden Gate.
I am going to go with a brand new cheese from Point Reyes that you might get a sneak peek of if you're at the marketplace on Sunday.
Teaser alert for everybody.
Which is our brand new classic brie cheese.
A brand new classic. I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. We started with truffle brie, a flavored version, and now we're going
you're walking it
back to the roots and going classic brie. And it's just got button mushrooms and creaminess, and it's this super smooth texture that is just going to be a super crowd pleaser on a board.
All right, Luciana, what's up next?
I'm going to go Good Thunder. I think that's a standalone with crusty bread.
Laura Chanel's mango habanero.
Mango habanero. Okay. So we got a little bit of heat to kick things off at the end.
A little sweet, and you can't go wrong with it.
So maybe you don't need the mango habanero jam. This is the flavor forward cheese that encapsulates all of that in one bite. So there we go. We got Golden Gate. We got a brand new classic brie. We got Good Thunder, and we got a mango habanero chev.
I also just want to say, if you're looking for cheese board inspiration, we have a seminar on Saturday, and it is a cheese board building seminar with our own Allie Kaiser. She is awesome and cheese expert, cheese board builder extraordinaire. She's going to be hosting a cheese board building class where it's actually going to be hands-on and you get to build alongside of her and nibble and eat and enjoy and take home a cheese board. So
how about that, listeners? You can go build boards with the board, and I promise you probably won't be bored. Well, ladies, thank you so much for appearing on this segment of This Must Be the Place. As we wrap up here, is there anything else you just want to let our listeners know about attending the Cheese Festival, where to find tickets, any last words?
Absolutely. You can find tickets at artisancheesefestival.com. Hot tip, every year our events sell out. So check the website quickly and add them to cart before they're gone. We're so excited to see you there. It's a party, it's a celebration, lots of personal interaction with cheesemakers, and we can't wait.
So come play with us.
Well, thank you so much both, and we will chat again soon. Take care.
The interviews are done, which means I think it's time to crack one open. Interviews make me thirsty, and I want you thirsting for knowledge about some great beer, both local and not so local. Each week, I'll introduce you to a beer I find discussion-worthy and explain the nuances of what makes it fantastic in my eyes and why you should give it a try. And just to keep it on point, I'll even try to make sure the beer reflects the vibe or theme of the episode.
Well, folks, it's early March, and with the daylight coming back in full force, we are full steam ahead, ready for spring. At least, I know I am. I think it's one of the most beautiful times here in Sonoma County, in my opinion. After getting down and curdy with friends from the upcoming Cheese Fest, I was thinking about which beer to feature. Coincidentally, I've already touched on a ton of perfect beer styles to pair with cheese. Luckily, there's never a shortage, and I reached into my fridge for inspiration to find Sonoma Spring Brewing's Bock the Walk, which is a great beer and style to talk about as spring is on the horizon. Bock, B-O-C-K, beers are a German style of beer that were traditionally produced to bridge the gap between winter and spring weather. This style can be referred to as liquid bread, as it was also created for monks to drink during Lenten periods of fasting, because it gave enough nutritional value as would a loaf of bread. There are many types of Bock beers out there, and this single Bock is perfectly true to style. All Bocks have deep malt characteristic and pour dark with a nice mocha foamy head sitting at the top of the beer. Bock the Walk is 6.8% alcohol by volume and has exquisite notes of caramel, toffee, and toasted bread, mostly on the nose. As you sip and the beer warms, you get pronounced caramel and dark fruit notes with a tiny bit of warming spice. It also happens to be a beer that pairs wonderfully with cheese. My favorite pairing for a beer like this? An aged Gouda. There are deep caramel notes and those crunchy crystals in an aged Gouda that are the perfect complement for a Bock beer. I urge you to get out there and try it and let me know what you think. A great beer to enjoy on a rainy Sonoma County day, or really any day this spring. Maybe you should even take a road trip to Sonoma Springs and snag one at the source. I found my beer at Oliver's Market if you're looking to stay more local. Now, I want to offer an overwhelming thank you to Keith, Luciana, and Jane for their conversation about the Cheese Festival happening next weekend. I hope you'll go out there and have a great time. Cheers from your host.
This Must Be the Place is produced by our friends at Pod Locally, an audio platform helping local voices connect to their communities. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment on all your favorite podcast apps, and visit the show notes for more information, links, and resources. Look out for our next drop on Sunday. Until then, I'm your host, Alo Galinsky, saying have a great week.